Hi everyone, welcome to the second virtual vinyl session, bringing together both Nottingham Sunday vinyl sessions and Flying Vinyl Newark. This is how it works. We'll do part one, which is my intro, and then we can all listen to the record at our leisure. If you don't have the record or CD, and you can find it on most streaming services, and there's a link to the full album on YouTube. After you've listened to part one, there's a separate video for part two. So, today's featured album is Tracy Chapman's self-titled album. Here's my copy, which I've had since its release in 1988. It was an album I had on heavy rotation for well over a decade, and some of the themes within it really resonate with me and the personal situations that I found myself in. It was an album I kept going back to and still provides the same comfort when I listen to it now as it did back then. I always think that music is like having your own personal time machine, and it has the ability to transport you back to a space and time, and this album definitely does that for me. So, a little background about Tracy Chapman. She was born in 1964 in Cleveland, Ohio, otherwise known as Bomb City. She was brought up by a single mother, and they were working class and living on the margins of society, with a backdrop of welfare, desegregation, racial unrest and riots, all themes which are explored on this album. She learned to play ukulele at a very young age, and she grew up on a diet of jazz, soul, gospel and the country music that she heard on the radio. You can hear these influences in the album and in her music in general. She started playing the ukulele when she was, like I say, when she was young. She started writing songs when she was 8, and she started playing guitar at 11. At the age of 16, she wrote the first song that you'll hear on here, the first song of the album, and that's talking about a revolution. It shows a quiet hope and a faith for a better world, and her songwriting is really showcased in this, considering she wrote that song at such a young age and it's such a famous song now. She won a scholarship to attend high school away from her home community, and she gained a degree. She made her musical debut as the opening act for women's music pioneer Linda Tillery at Boston's Strand Theatre in 1985. A fellow student was there from her university, and his father happened to be a music publisher, and he helped her sign a contract with Elektra Records in 1987. Just prior to this, she performed at Wembley Stadium. She was still relatively unknown at this point. She performed at Wembley Stadium for Nelson Mandela's birthday benefit concert. Stevie Wonder should have been performing, but a piece of his equipment had gone missing, so he decided not to go on, and Tracy took his place. She played Fast Car, which is another song that you'll hear on this album. She cut a solitary figure. I've seen the footage, and she was alone, exposed, androgynous, plainly dressed, but she let her music speak for itself, and her wistful folk and blues just made people aware of her quiet power and how her stripped back music held such power. And after this, she became a star, and the album went multi-platinum upon its release. So, here it is, her debut album, now considered a folk classic and a counterbalance to the synth-driven pop that the music charts were saturated with in the late 80s, and also a counterbalance to the era of wealth and greed. So it's not explicitly confessional, but it's a portrait of her environment. And just bear with me, I'll put it on, put the first track on. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you back for part two.